Ruchira, thank you so much for talking to me and welcome back to Azadi Talks. I think the last time we spoke, it was virtually, but it's so lovely to be here in your wonderful apartment with your books here, with everything that is so Ruchira around us. Please tell me about your latest book, Freedom Seeker, but I would like to say Azadi Seeker. So please tell me about your latest book.
Thank you for coming here, Pyali, and that too during the UN General Assembly. And as we sit in the shadows of the UN, I want to remember the Roosevelts and the four freedoms that they stood for. And one of them was freedom from fear. And that is exactly what my book, The Freedom Seeker, is about. It's about a little girl who's 12 years old, growing up in Chandigarh, the captain of a hockey team, loving grandparents, from both sides, Nana, Nani, Dada, Dadi, and parents who are a nurse and a farmer. And suddenly her world is disrupted because of the rising religious intolerance. A rock crashes through the window of a home when a family is celebrating a festival with food and music, and the rock has a note in it which is against her parents. Her parents are interfaith, a Sikh father and Muslim mother, and there's a group of vigilantes in Chandigarh who are against interfaith marriages, love jihad as they call them. So the situation becomes so bad that Simi's father has to finally seek political asylum here and becomes a taxi driver in Queens, New York. But by the time he applies for his mother, for his wife and his daughter, um, they don't get it. It's chain migration and zero tolerance and all of that. So they end up being smugglers to bring them into the US. And that's where my story really begins. It's the story of Simi navigating a barbed wire fence, a harsh desert, a border detention camp, a shelter, indifferent bureaucracy, a foreign country. And in this process, she's also separated from her mother. So this is a little girl looking for home and safety in the middle of great political change in two countries, India and US.
I mean, the issues that you write about in this book, in the form of Simi's story, resonate so much with the work we do at Azadi because we work with refugee populations. Our main work is around forced displacement and migration. We have seen a massive regression in the recent times in terms of how the world is looking at migration, how the world is looking at refugees, or even, I dare to say the word embracing refugees because I don't think that exists anymore. Um, what is your take on that? And do you see the policies in the way they are changing in the West have a ripple effect in the rest of the world?
For me, what I see is common between people is their humanity. And each of us brings something unique which we offer to the world, and the world is better and richer because of that. Also, when I grew up in Calcutta, it was in India which took pride in the fact that we had 26 languages, that we had so many religions, and the slogan was unity in diversity. And we would enjoy going to other people's homes because who were from a different religion or different ethnicity, because the food would be different, the festivals would be different. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
And, to find that the world has developed so many phobias around people who are not like them is kind of strange to me, because they are actually making their own world smaller. And a small space is always a prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any small space, right?
Yeah.
Including a pedestal.
Yeah.
So I have been watching this rise of anti-immigrant feeling, and which is now transferred on to not just immigrants and migrants, but to refugees and asylum seekers. And I find that extremely troubling, because every country has actually benefited from waves of migration.
Yeah.
People who brought in new ideas, who brought in innovation, who brought in different kinds of technologies. Steve Jobs was a migrant. Einstein was a refugee.
Yeah.
To America. So this fear is very unfounded. And yet, there are political parties who are stoking this
Yeah.
to polarize people against each other, create a fear and a neurosis so they can get some kind of constituency who will vote for them or go fight for them.
Yeah.
And I've been spending a lot of time in the US, especially in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And one of the things which I've noticed is that there are so many migrants here. I live in New York.
Mm.
Queens, it must be the only zip code in the world where more than 150 languages are spoken
That's,
in one zip code, right? And you'll walk down Jackson Heights and there'll be a Greek store, and then a Korean store, and then a Bangladeshi, a Nepali, a Tibetan, an Indian, and all of it all mixed up. And even in India, all the different cuisines, right?
yeah.
You hear the language, you smell the food, and people are happily coexisting. So, but I've also watched the rise in fear.
Yeah.
And, especially now, there are 1 in 4 children in America live with one immigrant parent.
Parent.
That's a quarter of American children.
Mm.
And they are living in fear that either they will be deported or a loved one will be
Will be
deported.
deported. Yeah.
And so I wrote The Freedom Seeker for them, because I want them to know that they are not wrong, they are not at fault. The system is kind of skewered,
Yeah.
and they can find courage and resilience in their own hope and the community and friendships they build.
Mm.
So, this book is really through Simi's eyes. But Simi does find courage. She does find community of kind-hearted people who help her,
Mm.
and she does make it. I'm not giving the plot away
Yeah, yeah,
by
no, no,
saying
you shouldn't.
she.
But let me talk about your other home for now. So we've spoken a little bit about the US. We see that the book starts in India and then moves on to the US, right? But since you speak about fear and anxiety, we have seen in the recent last few weeks, last few months, there has been a lot of xenophobia which has been emanating in India itself and about your home in Kolkata and in West Bengal, also bordering states. We've seen that Bengali Muslims are being deported who are citizens of India, and alongside also, of course, refugees being deported. Um, do you think that in all of this, yes, xenophobia is there, yes, there is a hate politics going on, but in all of this, it is the women and girls who suffer the most. And because you've worked so much on trafficking, in all of this, their circumstances are actually being not even looked at when these decisions are being made.
Yeah, it's like the layers of hierarchy, right? So the invisibilization of the invisible, right? So inside that, what's happening to women and girls is, of course, more targeted, because if you target women of the enemy group, then it's considered an even deeper act of revenge and threats and all of that. So in Bosnia, we saw the war crimes against women by raping them, right?
Yeah.
And now we see women and girls of the enemy, so-called enemy groups, being
Yeah.
targeted with sexual violence, rape, and trafficking and sale, purchase. So that's one part of it. The other part is that because when there is poverty and people become poorer and more unequal and access to resources become less, then organized crime does move in and they prey on the poor. So I have seen this in my own work on human trafficking, how girls from the most vulnerable communities, who I call the last girls, are
Mm.
the ones that the traffickers prey upon, right?
Mm.
And so they definitely target, refugee camps. They're always lurking around refugee camps, and I've
Yeah.
worked with the UN for 10 or 12 years across the world. And I have seen them lurking outside refugee camps, preying on girls who are trying to build a life, and they'll be either sugar daddies or say, I'll get you out of here and life will be better or whatever.
Yeah.
And conflict zones, Rohingya refugee camps in India, Muslim minorities, and then Rohingyas are minorities within minorities, even
Yeah.
marginalized
Yeah.
thereof. So, yes, it's definitely happening. And there is a connection between trafficking and migration too, because migrant communities very often don't know the language, don't have community support in the countries they go to. They're alone and they're navigating a lot of stuff, and the traffickers will move in.
um as a feminist, as an activist, and also somebody who's very liberal in her views, if I may say so. Uh, does this enrage you? All of this is happening around us.
I do feel angry because anger gives me the energy to carry on. But also, I know how to channelize my anger into some kind of activism which is positive. Because I believe anger can take you in two directions, the negative and the positive. And just marching is not enough, and just disobedience is not enough. Because after some time, it will fizzle out and have no impact on the community we are trying to help. So I try to match my negative acts with my positive acts by doing community service. So I actually go into red light areas and help girls go into schools. I link women to bank accounts. And even now with the Freedom Seeker, I'm going to schools and libraries and talking to middle grade students about how to lose their fear,
Mm.
and talking to parents and teachers and explaining to them that if they share information with the kids, it's better than keeping things secret from them, because
Yeah.
that way the kids won't be shooting in the dark. And how everyone together can collectively plan from a place of hope
Mm.
rather than a place of fear,
Yeah.
because fear shrinks your options
Yeah.
and hope expands your horizons.
Yeah.
So, and also there are lots of little things in the book as you go along where Simi finds help from unexpected people. Small acts of kindness can be a kind of resistance.
Mm.
So, a border guard who comes and plays a board game with Simi inside a detention center because he remembers his daughter back home. But it gives Simi strength to carry on because she's seen as a person, or a nurse in the infirmary who shares a bit of information with her, or a journalist who smuggles a note out of a shelter for her, or a caravan of mothers who drives her mother back home. So, you think the whole system, everyone in the system will be bad, not true.
Mm.
Most people are good, but they're prodded into becoming whatever they are. And they can always recover their humanity and feel better about themselves and the world around them. So I keep telling people kindness wins and
Yeah.
hope is the best form of planning.
Yeah. So let's say briefly, in 2 points each, what is the kind of activism and feminism that is now needed given the current political environment and also social environment, which is rapidly changing? Uh, what is the kind of activism and feminism needed in the US, and what is the kind of activism and feminism needed in India, in 2 points each?
So I would say that it's the same activism and feminism that is needed both in the US and India. Is that we have to prepare to fight for our equality, participate much more in politics, and connect politics to community service, which is not just about rhetoric, but cleaning the pond, lifting the garbage off the streets, being relevant to the people rather than a top-down approach, the grassroots approach, which is signified in the Panchayat Raj system,
Mm.
where so many women have got elected to village councils, and that has changed the shape of India actually.
Yeah. Mm.
And we have to be prepared when we look at each other that to let go of role segregation
Mm.
as feminists, because we want to become independent and we want to go out and work, etc. But we look down on men who are not the breadwinners.
Mm.
We think they are sissy, and no, why can't they be home take carers
Home
or
carers.
caregivers?
Yeah.
And why can't we be breadwinners? We should be accepting
But do
of
you
role fluidity in role, which we are not as yet.
but do you think, and that brings me to pretty much the last question, but do you think that is rapidly changing in a way which is regressive? Because now there is this whole thing of manosphere, incels, tradwives, the whole concept of tradwives being glamorized, that you can be financially dependent and you don't need to be financially independent. And also large policies around the world which are where we've seen regression in women's rights situation. So your take on that, and then what is your hope and aspiration for feminism and women's rights in the coming decade?
So, I would say that women's rights have never been so much under threat as now.
Mm.
And that is because of the rise of the religious right. And it is because, men are glorifying rape, like people like Andrew Tate, right? And the rise of the incel gangs who say, where men say they're entitled to go and rape women. And at the same time, there are surveys which are showing that women are saying that we want to be traditional wives, stay at home, not even have the vote. Some women are saying now, which is really
Uh,
scary.
because we've had women fight for it, die for
Exactly.
it.
And what they don't understand is that as they give up and give in, it might seem comfortable because it feels that the man will go out and win the bread. But what they don't realize is if there's no bread to be earned, even he won't be able to earn bread. And
Mm,
this is the reality we are already seeing in India. No
mm,
one can get a job, no one can get adequate work, a livelihood. So, a
mm,
lot of young men are not marrying because of that.
mm.
And it's very sad that they're not pinpointing the right problem, but thinking that they can change it around. There's going to be no a woman who becomes a tradwife and has 6 kids. 6 kids later, she will realize she can't afford it, and the
Yeah,
burden of looking after those 6 kids is all hers.
true.
And the man and she will then have no way out of it because they've been already brainwashed into thinking this was the comfortable way of life, and it was
Yeah.
not. So, this kind of brainwashing and spinning, which is luring and seducing young men into thinking that being a husband and having children and getting married will give them happiness, may not. And the same thing is true for
For
women who
women,
think
yeah.
that if they find a man, he will go and earn the living, and while they are bringing up the kids, and it'll all be like the movies or picture books.
It's never going to be
The
that.
reality is she will have to feed the 6 kids and clothe and clean the house without any money.
Yeah.
And the feminization of poverty will hit in a bigger way, which will make her poorer and poorer. And I've been traveling across the country. I know teenagers who become pregnant, dropped out of school, had a baby, and so because of that, they were not able to go to college or
Yeah.
get the kind of jobs they wanted to, became waitresses, etc., and could not afford to look after the baby.
Yeah.
And then someone came along and started pimping them. So this was the first step towards trafficking. It increased a vulnerability to
So it's a
trafficking.
vicious cycle.
It's a very vicious circle, but it's beyond a vicious circle. What is happening is that what we have, it's regressing. And I don't know if you know this, but in the 1930s, women in Afghanistan had the right to vote.
Mm. And look where we are today.
And look where we are today. So once you start caving in, then it's a slippery slope,
Yeah.
and we think it can't be like Afghanistan. Any place can change, anything
Yeah.
can happen anywhere.
So, three final words, three aspirations for feminism and women's rights in the coming decade. We have a long gap to cover, I feel now.
I want to see 50% representation of women in all parliamentary bodies and senates and Congress everywhere in the world. I think it is time that women have more seats at the table than ever before.
Mm.
I want girls to have aspirations which are suited to their potential, to be able to dream freely so that they're not groomed into dumbing down, but groomed into flying high, like my other book says, I Kick and I
I kick and I
Fly.
fly. Yeah.
And I want young men to choose to be feminists.
Yes, that's very important. Thank you so much, Ruchira. Always a pleasure to talk to you. When can we get this book in India?
I hope in a year, or in a year,
In a
most
year.
likely.
Thank you so
But you
much.
can get a copy now.
Oh, thank
You're
you. We'll,
welcome.
as long as it's autographed.
I autographed it for you. I
Thank you.
autographed it
Thank
for
you.
you.